Hi, Lady Apes, Gentlemen Apes, Ape Andy here. Now, sharing individual thoughts. In the last video, we were talking about big banks, right? There are 8 big banks in the United States of America, and now the government regulatory bodies has told these big banks, and including all the other banks, that you need to have a net stable fund ratio, NSFR. The rule came into effect July 1st. Now, what this says is that in order for our overall economy to work, thrive, function normally, big banks, okay? You've all been through 2008, okay? Now, after that, we have the Dodd-Frank Act. And now here's something else, NSFR, Net Stable Fund Ratio. You have to have enough cash in your bank. You cannot leverage out too much. You cannot leverage out too much. It's not good, okay? That's what happened in 2008. Banks failed because they don't have enough. One of the reasons, okay, apart from the housing market crash, was that the banks don't have enough cash. They were leveraged out too much. So you need to have enough cash according to this net stable fund ratio rule from the regulatory bodies effective July 1st. Now, so it is telling the big banks you must have enough money in your bank, okay? Now these big banks, their clients are not individuals like me, poor Ape Andy, now, or other retails. These big banks, their clients are hedge funds, institutions. Now these big banks, they have hedge funds and hedge funds and hedge funds as their clients. Some hedge funds are going long on the stock market. Some hedge funds, like Big C, is going short on the stock market, even shorting U.S. Treasury bonds. Okay. So, the information is that these big banks have to submit report, which means after July 1st, the regulatory bodies look at the 8 big banks. You didn't meet NSFR requirement. You, and you didn't meet NSFR requirement. Submit report, and make changes to comply with NSFR, Net Stable Fund Ratio. So these big banks have to write up reports. Now, one of the big banks, their client is Big C. This big bank has got long positions on the stock market. This bank has got one of its clients, a hedge fund, Big C, that goes short on the stock market. So these are positive, this is short. You plus these together, and then the books of this big bank has hedge funds that go long on stock market. This big bank has hedge fund, for example, Big C, that goes short on the stock market. So long, positive positions, short, negative positions. So inside this big bank's book, you open up the book, you're not meeting the NSFR, you're not meeting the net stable fund ratio requirements. Because long positions and short positions, way short positions, you put them together, it's not up to the requirements. Net stable fund ratio, your fund is not net stable. Hence the name, net stable fund ratio. Okay. So this big bank, which has Big C as its client, has been named. Submit report. make changes to meet net stable fund requirement ratio, net stable fund ratio requirements. So now, please think as if you were the big bank. If the regulatory body says, come up with enough cash to meet NSFR, what are you going to do? Well, as of July 19th, 2021, market seems to be in a correction already. The market is red. So if you sell your long positions, that'll make the market go into red even more. So if you sell your long positions, it doesn't help, right? The long positions are there. However, this particular client of yours, Big C, is going way, way short. So 2, 3, 4, 5 positive plus 1 big, big, big negative. It means this big bank doesn't meet the NSFR. So Ape Andy was talking with a friend, and so I said, okay, think like a big bank. Sell the long positions for cash and meet the requirements. I was corrected. It doesn't help. These long positions are already positive in the books. It is because of this huge short position on the stock market by this particular client of this big bank that made the book of this big bank not meeting the NSFR. Think. What would you do if you were a big bank? My 2 hedge funds who are long in the stock market on my books are positive. But this hedge fund in my books is super negative. The solution is to not cut off the clients, the hedge funds who are in long positions, because that's good for your books. Why are you stuttering, Ape Andy? Stutter, stutter, stutter. Would the solution be to cut off this client who is net negative because it's shorting the stock market, shorting the US Treasury bonds, shorting this, shorting that, shorting this, shorting that? Would that help? I guess it would. But is that what the big banks would do? I don't know. Again, government says meet net stable fund requirement ratio. Check, 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 check all the 8 big banks. One of these 8 big banks is clearinghouse for hedge fund Big C. Of course, this big bank also have many other clients who are hedge funds long on the stock market. So in this big bank's books, open up the book, 2 hedge funds, long positions, positive, good, meeting net stable fund requirement ratio, net stable fund ratio requirements. But you look on this side of the books. Oh, Bank of big bank, Bank of your client Big C has shorted their short position so deep, so way huge, hugely negative. So 2 small positive plus 1 big negative makes this big bank's book look very bad, not meeting the requirements of the net stable fund ratio requirements. So this big bank has to write a report, has to come up with methods, has to come up with either come up enough cash to offset this client's negative positions, or selling stocks wouldn't help because the long positions are positive in the books. You sell those long positions, it doesn't help. It'll make the market go even deeper in red, so that the long positions would be worth less. That's why Selling stocks to meet the net stable fund ratio wouldn't help. You sell stocks, the market value of the long position decreases even more. What you have to do, as the big bank of is to do something about this particular client, hedge fund, big C, who's shorting this, shorting this, shorting that, psst, including shorting GME, psst, including shorting US Treasury bonds. You have to do something about this client. Okay. Now, if this client doesn't do as you say, then you have to do something about this client. Get them off your books. Back to the example of Archegos. That's why Goldman Sachs was the first to get Archegos off their books. Goldman Sachs is always the first out the door. The interest of Goldman Sachs comes first before anything. Goldman Sachs is always the first out the door. Archegos is in trouble? Cut off Archegos. Okay, cut off Archegos. That's why Goldman Sachs was safe. The second, third, and the fourth to cut off Archegos is left with the most damage. Credit Suisse, Nomura. Okay, so that's what big banks do. The survival of the big banks comes first, not their clients. Keep that in mind. Okay, let's see what happens. Love both AMC and Jimmy. Love you, apes.